that's why we're going crazy. Just just trying to get them all moved. Are you on the speakers list already? Okay. Okay. I just wanted to check something. Actually, it's still upstairs. That's the next thing I would bring down. So if you just go
Morning.
so when I started, you're welcome when I started. You want to be on hand? I know that I think you're ready.
CC you? Do you have your phone with you? Then I won't bother CCing you.
I have to unload first. If I don't unload, I can't. Can you get more? Ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, I know. Probably just one. Okay, there we go.
Untitled Chapter.
Which item though?
Oh, I'm NYC Untitled. I just found this thing sitting here.
Yeah. You have to watch it because this is not for all the items.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like item for item, right?
Yeah, it's like, yes.
Yeah, that's what I wondered.
Yeah, yeah.
Scratch me out there.
Yeah, but
And this is for.
put your body.
I'll put my agenda item at the top. No, no, it's okay. I don't do these a lot, so sorry.
I'll make it right down.
Ma'am, you can scratch me right out of that. It's the wrong item.
Thank you very much.
No, no problem, sis.
Multiple people for one item, which is why last time. No, but you're like, you will enter him on that sheet. At the end of the sheet, enter his name there, okay? But log in first, so that one of us is logged in, and then I am. And you're next.
Good morning, everyone. The meeting is called to order. Are there any declarations of interest under the Act? Could I have a confirmation motion of the minutes of June the 6th? Jay Robinson, James Pasternak, all in favor, opposed, carried. We have items 1 to 17 that are being held. They're timed items. Please go to item 18. (32.18) Final report zoning amendment application 1603 to 1607 Eglinton Avenue West. Okay, let's hold it down. Item 19 is being held. There's a request to speak. If you're here, by the way, to speak to an item, please register with the clerk first. 20, layered in focus planning study, held. 21, preliminary report, 2788 Bathurst Street, held. Item 22, preliminary report, zoning bylaw application amendment, 35 Points Avenue. Councillor Fillion? Okay. Item 23, preliminary report, zoning amendment application, Bayview, Longview, and McKee Avenue. Councillor Filion, moved. 24, preliminary report, zoning amendment application, 10 to 12, Concord Place. Held. 25, held. 26, held. 27, preliminary report, OP and zoning amendment application, 15 to 21 Holmes Avenue. Hold. 28, speed limit reductions, York University and Downsview neighborhoods. Councillor Perruzza? No?
I'll move it.
Why?
I'll move it.
Okay, moved by Councillor Pasternak.
Okay.
29, always stop control, Tumpain and Heathrow.
You?
Yes, okay, move, yeah. 30, held. 31, turn prohibitions, Downsview Avenue, moved by the chair. 32, traffic control signals, Shepherd Avenue West and driveways to 1645 Shepherd Avenue West, Northwood Park. Moved, yeah. 33, short-term parking, Wilson Heights Boulevard.
I'll move the staff recommendations.
Moved. 34, speed limit reduction, Wilmington Avenue. Councillor Pasternak.
Yeah, I'll move the staff recommendations.
35, eastbound left turn advance feature, Finch Avenue West and Torresdale Avenue, Goldfinch.
I'll move the alternative recommendations. I believe the clerk has a motion regarding an advanced green eastbound on Finch. If we could put that on the screen, we could. Yeah, there's the bus route. It will have to come to council as well. Yes. That could, oh, there we go. Let me make sure that's it.
Okay.
Yes, there we go.
Okay. 36, turn prohibition, Covington Road, held.
Is my item moved?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
yes.
we're good. Okay.
37, there's a request to speak, please hold. 38, held. 39, pedestrian crossing, Bathurst and Neptune Drive.
I'll move staff recommendations.
Thank you. 40, short-term parking, Ridley. Councillor Carmichael Greb.
Move staff recommendations.
Okay, 41, U-turn prohibitions, John Wanless Public School.
Move staff recommendations.
42, pedestrian crossover pilot, Rosewell.
Move staff recommendations.
43, speed limit reduction, Woburn.
This one, I will move staff recommendations.
44, speed limit reduction, collector and minor arterials in Ward 16.
Move staff recommendations.
Traffic calming, Briar Hill.
This one, I will move staff recommendations.
46, construction staging, Helendale.
Move staff recommendations.
Councillor Filion, 47, parking prohibition, Hillcrest Avenue. Councillor Robinson, standing prohibition, Mount Pleasant Road, 48.
Staff recommendations.
And 49, traffic calming, Hogs Hollow. Councillor Robinson.
Yes, I would move staff recommendations, and thank you to staff for all their work on this initiative.
Councillor Burnside for 50 being held. Parking amendments, Cherokee Public School, 51. Counselor Tsao.
Yes, I'll move staff recommendations.
52, Counselor Pasternak, Parking Regulation Amendment, Bainbridge Avenue.
Yes, there's a staff-supported series of amendments to the parking restrictions. If we could put the motion on the screen. Yeah, that looks like them.
All right. 53, turn prohibitions, Jane and Downsview Avenue, moved by the chair. 54, parking prohibitions, Downsview Avenue, moved by the chair. Speed limit reduction, Exbury Road, moved by the chair. 56, Councillor Robinson, designation of fire routes.
Yes, Madam Chair, if I could move staff recommendations, please.
Okay, 57, Councillor Perruzza, assumption of services. Okay, that's for 1100 Shepherd Avenue West. Done. 58, moved by the chair. Okay, motions to introduce. Councillor Carmichael Greb, you have a motion which will be item 74, Glen Rush Boulevard and Frontenac Avenue all-way stop. Move for circulation.
Yes.
Carried. Then you have one, Old Orchard Grove and Gray Road. Same?
Yes, same.
Okay.
Yep,
Then
and same.
request for U-turn prohibition in front of Allenby Junior Public School.
Yep.
Yep. And would you also move one for Councillor Cole?
Sure.
Naming of the laneway of Eglinton West and Dufferin as Fairbank Village Lane?
Yes, I'll move that.
Okay. Page 2. Councillor Robinson, you have a few here.
I do, thank you.
One, which will be known as item 78, regarding speed limit reduction on Walnus and Rothmere.
Yes, so I'd like to introduce those.
Okay. 79, speed limit reduction on Snowden.
Yes, again, I'd like to introduce that to the committee, to the council.
The renaming of the outdoor space at 75 the Donway as West Park.
Again, I'd like to add that as an additional item.
Regarding Blythewood Junior Public School safety measures.
So,
Yes.
yes, same thing, I'd like to add that as 32.82.
And Blythewood Road parking prohibition.
Again, around a school area, and that's 32.83. I'd like to introduce that to
Would you
council.
please introduce one, a report from the Director and Chief Building Official regarding residential demolition on Ellerslie? Oh, I'm sorry, that's Fillion, sorry, okay. Then back to Robinson, no, still Fillion, St. Paschal Baylon Catholic School. Request for report? Okay, and then Councillor Robinson, speed limit reduction in the Lawrence Park neighborhood.
Yes, I'd like to add that as NY 3285, please, Madam Chair.
Okay, now, 1, 2, 3, 4, there are 5 notices from Josh Cole. You'll introduce? Okay, the first is the York Beltline deficiencies. The second is speed bumps in Lawrence Heights.
Yep.
Then regarding Lawrence Heights revitalization 2.0. Then supports for Lawrence Heights.
Yep.
Then fence removal along the Allen Greenway.
I'll move all.
Is there anyone else? Okay. there's another one? Would someone introduce one for Councillor Burnside, please?
I'll do
Jay,
that.
okay. Regarding stop sign change on Moore Avenue, Southvale Drive. All right,
I'll introduce that.
9:45 public hearing. 104 to 110 Bartley Drive. Is there anyone here in the audience to speak to this? Okay, would you please approach the microphone and identify yourself, and you may speak for 5 minutes. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Ann Lavery, and I own a building across the street at 82 Bartley Drive. I understand through speaking to the developer that I should have spoken to Cynthia earlier, but I am a landlord. I don't live on the property. I subsequently moved. I've got the paperwork here. I am. My major concern about this is the increased size of the park, oddly enough. I'm not here to fit an agenda, not the developers, not the builders, not the ministries. I would like to see a safe area for the children. The park that's being expanded now has 3 roads bordering it. What was a small, safe, cornered park is now going to be sticking out like a peninsula with 3 very busy roads around it. The park is not that large to support kids running, throwing balls for dogs. While I am in support of development and for clean green spaces, the additional area may not be the best placement for it, especially when you look at 2 of the roads that line up on Bartley. The creation of the new road that runs into Bartley will be about 30 feet to the, it will not line up, put it that way, as a 4-cornered area. There'll be a distance. So here we have children on a busy street with not even a 4-way stop. I'm proposing that the new road be straightened so it can line up so we create a 4-way stop. Not a stop, but technically an area where children would be able to look across the street, understand who has the right of way. Because now, the way it's designed, thank you, it's not that clear. If you look to a lower screen, Bartley, the existing road to the south, that exists. The new proposed road is the public street to the north. I propose that those 2 roads, north and south, actually, yes, line up. And that would create a much more needed flow. However, that could interrupt the additional park. That park is not fully seen, but if you would continue around the corner to the existing park where it exists on the far left side of your screen, it has 3 roads around it because there's another road going into another community. It's really not that safe for the children. Again, I support public spaces, but let's make a safe place first. I propose one of the things that could be done is take that chunk of 10% land, which I understand is dedicated from the ministry, and you move it to the east side of Bartley on Teesdale. This way, the community could be bookended by green spaces. What doesn't show is Bartley. Bartley is a very fast road. People speed along there. There's no stop. If you moved it to the other side, you would create a non-blind spot as you turn a slight corner. It looks great on paper. I understand that. I really do. Like I said, I'm in support of community. I like the development. I like the new road. I hope it does connect to the most northerly piece of section, there's another community that wants to make a full access road back onto Teesdale. Fully in support of it. As I said, my major concern is creating a small, safe park into a larger, unsafe park, and to create the lineup of the streets. And I'm sorry that I didn't say this earlier. Is my 5 minutes up? Any questions? Ooh, I'm good.
You may be seated, thank you.
you.
Oh, okay,
Oh, yeah.
go ahead.
No, I'm just a I own a home. No, I don't work in the business. I'm a landlord who owns a piece of property at 82 across from the development.
I just say that because I think that most planners and most traffic consultants would agree with you.
Thank you. I think it's a poor terminology, but I just look at it and it's like poor feng shui. And I'm really sorry about that. I'm good at visualizing and putting myself in there. I've driven there. I've walked around there. I've been in the park. I can see on paper it looks good. I will say that.
Thank you.
Well, it's true. Most planners and most
Thank
traffic
you.
consultants would agree with her.
Thank you.
That aligning those would make them much safer as opposed to having
Thank you.
that situation. Thank you.
Roy Veracali, welcome, you have 5 minutes.
Morning, Madam Chair and members of council. My name is Roy Veracali. I represent the application. The proposal is for 84 townhouses, a public park, and a new public street. We've consulted heavily with planning staff and the community to develop the plan. The proposed park, 999 square meters or 10% of the total lands, is an extension of the existing Bartley Park, which was a request by planning staff to be located at this location. The proposed street, which is 2249 square meters, or let's just call it 18% of the land, is a new street connecting Bartley eventually through to Tealsdale. The cul-de-sac is a temporary measure until the lands to the north are constructed. The lands to the north have been approved. The townhouses are freehold, 67 of them, 17 condos for a total of 84 units, 4 stories in height. There's no rooftop landscaped areas anymore. We got rid of that, and the units are, as I said, 4 bedrooms, 1,600 square feet. We provided parking on site for the condominiums and on-street parking for the freeholds. Essentially, I'm in agreement with the city staff recommendations, but I would like to address the 3 points that the resident, who is the landlord in the neighborhood. The park, to shift the park to the east side at the north, I think we lose the opportunity of extending the existing park. I believe the park, as recommended by city staff, should be located in this location. As for the road configuration has been tested by WSP, our traffic engineers, and also by city staff traffic engineers, and they deem this configuration to be safe and acceptable. If they thought it was unsafe, we would have done something originally, but it is, as per their recommendation, safe. Otherwise, I seek to council to approve the recommendations. If there's any questions, I'm here to answer. Thank you.
Questions? Thank you very much. Are there any other speakers on this item? Well, I was thinking that we would hold it down till the counselor arrives.
Is he going to come?
Yes. No. Would someone like to move to hold it down?
I'll move to hold the item down until
I'll move to hold the item down until the local counselor is
Thank
able
you.
to get through traffic and get here.
Thank you. Item 2. I have a few people to speak. This is the OPA and zoning amendment applications for Allenbury Gardens and Kings Lake Road. Mr. George Dyke is first. Vincent Tong? No? Peter Smith? Yes?
This is 32.2.
I'm so sorry. Peter Smith is here on item 2.
And I believe I'm the only speaker on item 2.
Thank you.
So, first of all, my name is Peter Smith. I'm a land use planner and a partner with Bousfields. We are the planners and the agents for the applicant, which is DCMS Realty, which is the real estate development arm for Verve Senior Living. I recognize that you have a very, very long agenda today, so I will be extraordinarily brief and just simply say we reviewed the staff recommendations. We support the staff recommendations. We're happy to answer any questions that Community Council may have. And thank you very much for your attention for staff's work throughout this process.
Thank you. Are there questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mover? Councillor Shiner? Would you like to hold this item until the Deputy Mayor arrives?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll hold this item down until
All in
the
favor?
local counselor is able to get through traffic.
Item 3. George Dyke. Welcome. You have 5 minutes.
I'm here to object to the proposed changes to the Allenbury Gardens project. I'm doing so because at the outset, we residents of the area were asked by the construction consortium and Shelley Carroll to agree to a redevelopment, which I gather most others did in our community. We did so with the promise that solar rights proposed would be adhered to, that all construction entrances to the site would be located off of Fairview Mall Drive, and that there would be no construction on our residential streets other than to eventually adjust the intersection of Godstone and Fairview Mall Drive. We were promised at the initial proposal meeting that the roads such as Godstone, Kingslake, and Allenbury Crescent would not have any construction traffic, and there would be no disruption to the streets or to the residential neighborhood other than the activity on Fairview Mall Drive. That's what was promised to us, and what has actually occurred to date has been nothing short of blatant disregard to those promises that garnered our approval. As construction began, we were given notice by FRAM, the construction company, by means of a letter in our door, of a disruption for 2 days at the corner of Godstone and Kingslake. That was required because a special concrete pouring vehicle needed to be placed there for the foundation pour of the condominium buildings. Okay for the pour, but it wasn't a 2-day disruption. The pouring vehicle left, but that turned into a full construction entrance that is operational to this day. Godstone and Kingslake have, for 2 years now, been ripped up to the point where gaping holes were left in the road, often unmarked, and damaging many residential vehicles, including my own. We were promised that FRAM would clean the street regularly. That didn't happen. And heavy construction equipment traveled along Godstone and Kingslake, leaving massive trails of dirt and damaging the roadway. I've got pictures of that here if you'd like to see them. In fact, last year, the construction entrance opened up further along Kingslake, where the curb was removed and the sidewalk torn up. The sidewalk has since been hastily patched, and the curb has yet to be replaced to this day. I walked right by it this morning. All the while, construction messes encroach further into our neighborhood, and yet another access point established off of Allenbury Crescent for a short period. I brought these matters to the attention of Shelley Carroll's office in writing each time these infractions occurred, and have the responses here that say, and I quote, We were caught off guard by the new construction entrance. However, each time I contacted Ms. Carroll's office, I was told they are not prepared to do anything other than let the construction company have its way. On one occasion, November 24th, 2014, Ms. Carroll's office indicated we are also discussing the possibility of holding a community meeting in the new year if residents concerned are not officially responded to. That meeting has never occurred to my knowledge. We also got a notice by mail this year that an additional row of townhouses was going to be constructed on the corner of Godstone and Kingslake. No meeting or discussion about that either. And they have now been added to the project, reducing parkette space, which we were told was going to enhance that corner. At the outset, they also proposed that minimal underground parking would be built. That was a concern to many at the meeting that thought it seemed that with the construction, when the construction got underway, even though a pretty big hole was being dug, that wouldn't be adequate. Their claim was that most people would take the TTC. Well, it's not turning out that way. They have cars, and maybe because it's the cost of availability or residents already in the project are jamming up our streets by continually parking along Kingslake where parking is prohibited, and they park all day and overnight on Allenbury Gardens Crescent where 2-hour parking limit signs are posted. I even had a resident come to my door the other day and ask if he could rent my space in my driveway. We have much more traffic congestion now, and the project is less than half completed. There are at least 2 more condo buildings, and I think a third to be built on that property. We have much more traffic congestion, and now we have the latest amendment proposal, yet another increase in the number of dwelling units, and to go even higher on their proposed building E. I'm upset that we were told on this project that it has not been. We were told that the project has not been constructed in the manner or to the specification that was originally presented.
Thank you.
I'm at 5
Are there any questions? Thank you very much, sir. Vincent Tong? Hello, Vincent.
Hello.
You have 5 minutes?
Good morning. My name is Vincent Tong, and I'm the Chief Development Officer at Toronto Community Housing. I'm here today to support the report prepared by City Planning staff, specifically the recommendation to approve the rezoning and official plan amendment for Building E at Allenbury Gardens. As you would appreciate, our revitalization projects are extremely important. They offer significant benefits to not only TCHC, but the city as a whole. The benefits include quality housing, a healthy mixed-income, mixed-use community, improved community design, a reduction in deferred maintenance backlog, and the ability to generate revenue for reinvestment in TCHC's wider portfolio. The revitalization of Allenbury Gardens has been ongoing since 2010, and Building E will be the final phase of this project. Over the past 8 years, TCHC has worked collaboratively with our developer partner, Fram Building Group, affected tenants, various community agencies, the local city councillor, and staff with the City of Toronto to realize the vision for an improved Allenbury Gardens. Allenbury Gardens is truly a showcase of these benefits. When the revitalization is completed, Allenbury Gardens will be a mixed tenure community. The project will replace all 127 rental units previously located in the community, and it will create just over 1,000 market condominium units. The construction of market buildings funds the on-site replacement of rental units, and any additional profit will be used to fund unit repairs or revitalizations in other TCHC communities. As you all know, revitalization goes beyond bricks and mortar. With TCHC's partnership with Fram Building Group, we have provided 32 job placements to tenants and awarded $20,000 in scholarships and bursaries. 4 TCHC tenants have purchased market units in the new Allenbury Gardens condominiums through the foundation program with funds from the Affordable Housing Office. Construction for phase 1 is now completed. In 2017, TCHC tenants moved back into 30 new townhouses, and the first group of market residents moved into the first condo building. The second condo building, Connect Condos, was occupied earlier this year. The application before you today captures the final phase of the Allenbury Gardens project, increasing the number of units to 371 units for the last market building. Since the approval of the original master plan in 2013, there has been significant change in the Shepherd East corridor. Heights and densities continue to be shaped by the proximity to public transit, transforming Shepherd East into an urban avenue. Toronto Community Housing wants to create something special for the final building at Allenbury Gardens. Our vision is a building that bookends the site, capitalizing on its location along the highway and accommodating a density in a harmonious form compatible with the surrounding context. The added density will increase profit to TCHC, which will be used to fund unit repairs and new unit construction in other parts of our portfolio. Many contributors have helped us to achieve this outcome. With this opportunity, we wish to thank our developer partner, FRAM, current Councillor Jonathan Zhao, and former Councillor Shelley Carroll, city staff, members of the surrounding community, and the tenants of Allenbury Gardens for their hard work in helping to shape a better and more complete community. As I've said today, revitalization projects benefit TCHC and the city as a whole. Allenbury Gardens has been a true city building project. Your approval of this application will enable us to complete over 8 years of collective hard work to improve living conditions and quality of life for TCHC tenants in Allenbury Gardens and build a better Toronto for all.
Thank you. Questions? Yes, Councillor Shiner and then Councillor Pasternak.
So Vincent, you heard the deputant before with the concerns they had about parking, dirt on the road, and all the impacts of the development. Have you heard from those people before?
So through you, Madam Chair, concerns have been presented to us from the former councillor's office. We've responded to all the concerns. There hasn't been any new construction.
Have you been
access.
up there yourself?
Yes.
Is there dirt on the roads?
I haven't been there recently. I wouldn't be able to.
So I don't want to belabor this.
Yeah.
When neighbors call the councillor's office and they call you, I would suggest that that should be your utmost concern to go visit the site and see what's happening. If you haven't, I would suggest you do. And if your partner is FRAM, I would suggest that because you are an organization of the City of Toronto and a public organization, you should do above and beyond any other standard that's there. So I'm asking you, will you contact them as you go forward and as of today to make sure that they have daily washing of the streets as necessary, cleaning of the streets, and maintain the parking?
Through you, Madam Chair. Every time a resident concern has been brought forward, we went to clean the streets immediately. There has been no recent complaints brought forward to either us or FRAM.
My issue. I don't believe you should be complaint-driven. I think you should be driven by the fact that you want to be a good corporation, and I'm asking if, as this goes forward, you'll be able to do that to make sure the area stays clean and neat for the residents.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Pasternak?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The line of questioning, but the style may be a little different, was similar to Councillor Shiner's. We're always concerned when we have all these lovely plans here, and they look all great on paper, and the community's kind of bought into them. And then the third-party construction company makes a complete mess of the construction site, shows total disrespect for the local neighborhood. There's styrofoam and insulation blowing all over the place. They don't wet down the street at the end of a day on a hot summer day where the dust is blowing all over the place. Do you have a concrete, pardon the pun, construction management plan where your third-party constructors are respecting the local community?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, we have to submit a construction mitigation plan to the City of Toronto for approval.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tsao, you have a motion? Thank you, Mr. Tong.
Yes, and just before I move the motion, I wanted to thank Mr. Tong and Mr. Dyke for coming out here today to express their concerns. Mr. Dyke, I think your concerns are definitely heard, and it's appreciated that you've come here today to express them. I know when construction happens, it's a hindrance to a lot of people who live around there, and it's not easy to deal with. So, and it seems that the previous councillor made certain assurances to the residents about what will happen or what will not happen. So I want to work with you as well to make sure that what is going on is appropriate, and as well that the disruptions to residents is minimized as much as possible. So, Madam Chair, I would like to move the staff recommendations on this.
Thank you. All in favor? Oh, Councillor Shiner?
I only wanted to speak briefly, and no disrespect to Vincent and the people from TCHC. However, I've lived, as many of us have, through many construction sites within the ward. And I look for people that are responsible for the construction to be watching that site so my office doesn't get a phone call and my staff don't get a phone call. If you stay on top of it, and there is a construction plan, and in particular when it's subbed out to someone else, in this case Fram, then you can make sure on behalf of the city and the residents that the site is well maintained. And I have that, and many of our, I think my colleagues have the same thing. And I recall on many occasions when I would have to place one phone call to the developer to say it wasn't right, it wasn't being kept clean, please don't have me call you again, and they would put daily washing out on the street or sweeping on the street during excavation. They would put people on the side of the street to make sure it was right, and they would maintain it. And if they didn't, and I had to make a second call, it really wasn't a nice second call, because it's not our job as councillors to be the ones that are policing the area. It's those that are responsible for the development and the developer to do that. And I make my comments as if it's an agency of the city. They should be working twice as hard on behalf of the city and the local councillor to make sure that that doesn't happen and everyone's good neighbors. And that's the reason for my questioning, and that's the reason for my comment, and that's what I would expect of TCHC in the future, to make sure that my colleague here never gets another phone call about anything on the site, that it's well maintained and all those problems are addressed ahead of time, and that someone is actually visiting the site to make sure that's done. Because the neighbors shouldn't have to live through any more than the noise and the frustration of the concrete and of the construction, but not the type of impacts that they've had after that.
Thank you. On the motion by the local councillor, all in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Carried. Item 4, the last 10 a.m. public hearing, 451 Patricia Avenue, Tyler Peck. And if you're here to speak to an item on the agenda, please register with the clerk first. Welcome, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you and good morning. My name is Tyler Peck. I'm from WND Associates. We are the planning consultants on behalf of the owners of the site, School Sites Acquisition Corp. I also recognize that you have a very busy agenda today, so I will try to be brief. I'd just like to start by thanking staff for working with us on this file up to this point, and to Councillor Pasternak's office for assisting with the earlier community consultation. The proposal, which is the subject of these applications, the zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan of subdivision applications, is for the development of single detached homes on a new public street off Patricia Avenue, just east of Bathurst Street, on lands previously declared surplus and severed by the Toronto District School Board. The development is consistent with the provincial policy statement, conforms with the growth plan, and conforms with the relevant City of Toronto official plan policies. I will simply conclude by noting that we concur with the staff report recommending approval, and we are available for questions if there are any from the Community Council. Thank you. That was too fast.
Are there any questions? Thank you, sir. You may be seated.
Thank you.
Councillor Pasternak.
Well, I'll throw the recommendations out for vote.
Okay. I'll move the motion. Thank you. I'll move the motion. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. It carries. Sorry. Councillor Cole.
Yes, Madam
A number of
Chair.
items were held
Thank you. I'm
in your name. Let's go through them.
wonderful.
Let's start with 18. Final report, zoning amendment application 1603 to 1607 Eglinton Avenue West.
I will, sorry, Madam Speaker, just one moment. I'll move the staff recommendation.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 21, 515 Glencairn Avenue and 2788 Bathurst Street.
On that item, I have a motion to expand the notice area that
Yeah,
clerk
let's
should
do that
have.
now.
And that is to, the notice area of the community consultation meeting be extended to include, in addition to the 120 meters, all landowners and residents in the area bounded by Glengrove Avenue to the north, Dalemount Avenue to the west, Hillhurst to the south, Bathurst to the east, and that the applicant will pay the city for the costs associated with extending the notice area.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. All in favor of the motion as amended? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. The next one is 36, turn prohibition, Covington Road.
I will move the staff recommendation.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Always stop control, Englemount Avenue and Fairholme.
Madam Chair, I would like to move that for approval of the installation of an always stop control at Englemount Avenue and Fairholme.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. I'm sorry? Who are the speakers to that item?
I'm sure if that...
37. No? Okay.
Can I just clarify, Madam Speaker, is that a report with a staff recommendation?
No, it was the councillor's recommendation.
So have staff reviewed that intersection? Have staff reviewed that intersection?
we
Because
just
my
vote on it?
understanding is sometimes this can be a very dangerous practice.
Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, staff have reviewed that intersection for the installation of always stop, and it was not recommended.
It was not recommended. And what was the reason?
Are
that
we
it was-
asking staff questions?
I was going to.
Okay, then I'll hold the item and wait
All right.
till people can come depute to
All
it.
right, so that's item
37.
Okay, 38, school bus loading zone, Vaughan Road Academy.
I'll move the staff recommendation.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Is that all? Okay.
39 also? Okay, thank you.
Councillor Min Wong? Good morning. Items 1 and 2 were held. The deputants were listened to. Do you have a recommendation? Item 1 is,
They love you. They love you.
they do not.
I didn't say that.
104 to 110 Bartley Drive. Staff recommendation? Okay.
We're going to let them settle in.
Oh, I have the motion here. Recommendation prior to the issuance of the first above-grade building permit, the owner shall provide a contribution in the amount of $925,000 to use towards improvement of the Barclay Park entryway building.
All right. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 2. Final report. 905 Don Mills Road. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. On item 19, There's a request to speak. Keel Finch Plus, Encouraging Growth and Community Building Interim Report. David Mackay. And Jean Roy. Okay, go ahead, please.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is David Mackay. I'm a partner with MHBC Planning. I represent Policy Investments Limited and a number of other landowners who own land at the southwest corner of Keel and Finch. A letter has been submitted by our client's planning lawyer, Mr. Horosco. We've reviewed the report, and while we appreciate the efforts that have gone into the report on this matter, we feel that there is a loss of opportunity to fully utilize the transit infrastructure that is being proposed along Finch, as well as the subway that the city and the province has spent billions of dollars on for this area. We feel that a mid-rise built form, especially adjacent to the transit station, is low. We think that additional height and density should be contemplated at that area. There is also concerns with the park that is proposed on our client's property, which achieves approximately 20% of our client's lands without any justification for either the location or the amount of parkland in that area. So we'd respectfully request that this matter be referred back to staff for further discussions with landowners and consideration of additional height and density at the subway station as directed by the province to fully utilize this huge investment that you've made. Thank you.
There's a question of you, Councillor Shiner.
So I'm over here.
Yes, hi. Councillor.
So it's your belief that the city's plan for this area doesn't meet the provincial growth targets for it?
Well, the provincial growth targets in the growth plan are significantly low, in my opinion. 200 jobs and persons and jobs per hectare is next to nothing. It doesn't fully utilize the infrastructure that you've invested in here. And I'm not saying we should be doing like in Vaughan, where they're pouring tons of density in at 55 stories in that area. That's appropriate at the end of the subway line in a brand new community in new downtown. But I'm saying a mid-rise form should be some accommodation for increased height and density should occur within that transit station, obviously in accordance with good planning policies and guidelines.
And what's the density that's being proposed, and what's the density you think should be there?
Well, there's no density being shown on the plans. They've talked about a mid-rise form, which would be between 10 and 12 stories. So I think something higher than that, in the higher teens and low 20s would be appropriate around the subway station. Obviously, we do know that there is the restrictions from Downsview at this time, but those will be lifted in the future once the airport closes.
Thank you.
The next speaker on this item. Jean Roy.
Madam Chair, members of council and member of staff, my name is Jean Watt from the Canadian Fuels Association, and thank you very much for the opportunity today. I have written a letter dated July the 3rd, which you have in your package, and I'm here to provide some additional information and also answer some of your questions that you may have. The Canadian Fuel Association, if you're not familiar with it, is a company that is an organization that includes companies that provide fuels to Canadians across the country, and they are in the refining, distribution of fuel products. While our members are competitors in the marketplace, the members work together under the Canadian Fuels umbrella on various topics such as the environmental, zoning, traffic, parking, health and safety, which may be common to the industry. 3 of the Canadian fuel members, Imperial Oil, which is known as Esso, Shell Canada, and Suncor Energy, also known as Petro-Canada, operate the fuel storage distribution terminal located in the northeast quadrant of the Kiel-Finch area, as I will show you. If you look at this diagram, the area of the fuel terminals is shown in dotted line in red. This area of the fuel terminals is adjacent to the Kiel and Finch Plus study, and also overlaps some of the northern section of the study. This is the reason I'm here today. Did you know that this complex of these 3 fuel terminals is being supplied directly via pipelines from the refineries in Sarnia, Nanticoke, and even Montreal? These pipelines run parallel within the energy corridor, which also includes some natural gas pipeline, hydroelectric towers, and power lines. This is the largest volume fuel storage distribution industry complex in Canada, which is strategically located not only adjacent to the pipeline, but also in the middle of the Greater Toronto Area for an efficient fuel delivery system by tank trucks to various customers. This is 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. This terminal complex provides approximately 95% of the liquid transportation fuels, gasoline and diesel, for example, heating oil and other fuels, used by business, governments, public transit, private motorists, serving approximately 8 million people within the GTA and beyond. Industrial assets within the City of Toronto do not get much more strategic than these, and they absolutely need to be protected. Canadian Fuel has been pleased with its participation and input and cooperation through the various open houses and public workshop consultation organized. And we really commend the City of Toronto and city staff for really gathering some valuable input, which we've been able to provide. We understand and support the general intent of the study. We, however, have voiced some concerns known to staff at this point, and I'm sharing this with you, Council, in order to make sure that the study ultimately, when it completed, and the secondary plan that will come out of it, creates some situations which will not create incompatibilities with industries in the area, such as the fuel storage and distribution terminals, which are so important and vital to the industry and the City of Toronto. As the study continues to progress and embarks into its new phases leading to the development of the secondary plan, we continue to urge the city planning staff and council to be mindful of the implication related to the issue of the potential proximity between sensitive uses such as residential uses and the employment areas where the fuel storage distribution terminals are located. In summary, and in consideration for sensitive uses such as residential uses east of Kiel Street, resulting from redesigning of employment land to non-employment use or zoning to allow for new sensitive uses must be avoided in order to protect the long-term operational integrity of these terminals. I thank you for your attention. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Thank you very much. Motions? Councillor Perruzza?
Can we just stand this down for a few minutes so that I can put all this stuff together and see what we can make of it? Would that be okay?
I'm sorry, what item is this?
It's 19.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we've heard all the speakers, so we're holding it down for, we've heard all the deputants, we're holding it down for speakers. Okay. Councillor Pasternak.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. There were deputants for item 32-4, 451 Patricia Avenue, that were not heard, and the item was moved, so we'd like to reopen that so we can hear the deputants. So
Are the deputants for item 4 still here? Yes? Would you like to be heard? Okay, so Councillor Pasternak has moved reopening of the item. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. If you're here for an item and we're dealing with it, please make yourself known Thank you. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. We just been here from 10 o'clock. It's the first time. That's why we didn't know procedure, but thank you very much. My name is Igor Iskra. I'm a homeowner of 34 Marathon, and I'm representing other 5 homeowners from 28, 30, 34, 36 Marathon Road, which is just south of development. It's been happening for 5 years. We progressed pretty well from proposed townhouses to semi-detached, now detached, which is fantastic, and I appreciate Councilor Pasternak for support. But the key concern which we had on Marathon has not been addressed, and this is heights of the buildings. So by law is 10 meters, so they proposed 11.5. Our houses is 7.8. And if you look at topography of the development, so we are in lowland and proposed development of highland. So they propose 11.5. It's on purpose? Okay, sorry. So sorry. So elevation difference, there is a meter or so, even more, elevation difference between our backyards and proposed development, plus we have 7-8 meters our houses, and we have a proposed 11.5 just next immediately to our, which really concerned for all homeowners of this. That's I think all we have. So heights of the building proposed, and that proponent or developer proposed to change it from 10 to 11.5. It's a huge, huge concern for all homeowners on Marathon Crescent, which are presently here. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers on this item? Okay, so I'm sorry? Okay, thank you. All right, so I'm going to move the staff recommendation. All in favor? Councilors, you have to raise your hands for in favor or opposed. Yes. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Item 4 is dealt with. Item 5. Are there any speakers here for item 5? Rental housing demolition application on Broadway. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I will be moving staff recommendations, but also just noting the challenges at Yonge and Eglinton, particularly the northeast corridor, and what's happening there. And it is part of this issue is hitting the agenda at Planning Growth Management Committee tomorrow, but where you see very tall buildings, quite frankly, significant buildings with tenants in it being ripped down to build massive towers. And it's very unsettling for those tenants. So while I support this report, I just wanted to make mention of these public meetings are very difficult to see people in the Yonge Eglinton area who have lived there. It's been their neighborhood, it's been their life for 20, 30 years, being uprooted, and very fearful about what their future holds given the cost of rentals, or the lack of rentals in the city, but also more importantly, the cost. So again, I just want to emphasize the over-intensification in the Yonge Eglinton area, the out-of-control growth, particularly in the northeast quadrant. And you know, these public meetings are very difficult and unsettling for, I think, for any of the 44 of us who would be in the room. So at the same time, I do move the staff recommendations and thank staff for this.
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 7? No. 6. Final report. Oakwood Avenue Arts District. Is there anyone here to speak to this report? Councillor Cole?
I have an amendment, Madam Chair. So first, I'll adopt the staff recommendations, and second, that we request the Director of Community Planning, North York District, to report back in Q2 on potential amendments to the existing bylaws in the Arts District, which would require ground floor retail display areas or other commercial-oriented uses at the front of live-work units.
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 7, Sunnybrook Hospital. Is there anyone here to speak to this application? Councillor Robinson?
Thank you again, Madam Chair. I just want to again highlight that I will be supporting staff recommendations. This has been a long process. It's not complete, but the good news is that Sunnybrook, which is really a world-renowned trauma center, is adding a very important wing that will help people of all ages with mental health issues. And so we're not perfectly happy with the location of this addition, and it doesn't seem to have a big impact on the ravine, so we're happy about that. But the underlying issue here is that it's very important critical care that's needed, very much needed in Toronto, and so for that reason I'll be fully supporting this and moving staff recommendations.
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 8. There's one speaker who has registered, Mr. Hossein Sufi. If there is anyone else, please register with the clerk. Welcome. You have 5 minutes. Not here? I need a motion. Councillor Pasternak? Councillor Pasternak, are you moving item 8, moving the staff recommendation?
Sometimes that happens.
Yes, I'll move the staff recommendations. It's really for a community study.
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 9, 3019 Dufferin Street.
Madam Chair, I see item 9, there are 2 speakers on the agenda. My intention, because this report landed in my inbox at 9:30 last night on our desks in the public this morning, I intend to defer this item to the next meeting, so I don't know if that influences the decision of people that want to speak or not.
So Maria Santoro, Fortunato Petrolo, Frank Kolinek, and Mr. Volpintesta, are you okay not to speak? The councillor has just indicated that he's going to defer this item. We're not dealing with it today.
Sorry, when is the next meeting?
Who's speaking? I can't.
When is the next meeting?
January. So you want to speak? Okay. Okay, go ahead and speak. You have 5 minutes.
Yes, sorry, Councillor Cole, I hope I didn't, as you know, we won't be here. We would like to make our presentation maybe just for record.
Sure.
So, you know,
Please.
when this comes up again, you know, maybe it can be referenced or whatever. My name is Frank Kolnick, and I'm one of the residents neighboring the proposed condo tower development on Claver Avenue near Dufferin Street. It also seems that I always end up being the spokesperson for the community, so I have a little quick presentation. Hopefully I should fit into the 5 minutes. First and foremost, I would sincerely like to thank Councillor Cole and his staff basically for their help with the community on this issue and being available to facilitate and chair the various community meetings we've had on this issue. We understand there are a lot of people vying for your time, and we truly, sincerely appreciate the help you have given us. So again, we thank you. I have limited time up here, and the council has a long list of items for discussion, so I have only 2 points and a question for your consideration. And I will hopefully stay just within the 5-minute allotment. If not, my wife will continue in her 5 minutes. One point is generic and deals with the overall process of how these sizable developments are handled by the city. The other is very specific and is a request for this development, if approved. It is to ask the developer to enclose or glass in the terraces or balconies on the east side of the building. Now here's more detail on point 1, the process. This is the very first time most of us in our local group got exposed to the land development process. Attending the various meetings, we were shocked to discover that there seems to be a different standard when it comes to the application of laws and regulations for a rank-and-file citizen versus a sizable developer. Now, this sounds like a paranoid statement, but unfortunately, there's proof to back up this observation. There is no negotiations or wiggle room within the legal framework that the rank-and-file citizen normally encounters in daily life. For example, under traffic law, there's no negotiation with a police officer if you can roll through a stop sign, there's no other traffic. You will get a ticket. Okay? Or if you have only one headlight working on your car, if you can still see clearly ahead, there's no discussion. You will get a ticket. Under municipal regulations, I understand we now have garbage inspectors who can charge you as a resident if you put the wrong thing in the wrong bin. In other words, in the garbage bin instead of the recycling bin. You can't park your car on your own lawn or arbitrarily widen your driveway. The rules are clear, firm, and non-negotiable for a rank-and-file citizen. However, a developer of a significant project can negotiate all sorts of variances and exceptions. After all, that is why we are here today. For example, I understand from city staff that some developers propose, say, a 14-story building when there's, say, a 5-story limit. The idea being that they can negotiate this down or up to a 10-story building. For example, I understand the Treviso complex just north of our neighborhood, Dufferin Lawrence, is one such example where basically the limits got ramped up. Furthermore, if variances and exceptions are allowed in one case, other developers will now ratchet the first development to justify the same allowances for theirs. And then we may as well forget about the worth of our bylaws, official plan, and land use studies. To sum up, my point is that we either have or seem to have a two-tier legal framework, one for the rank-and-file citizen and one for the sizable developers. Whether perceived or real, it appears this way. It appears this way to us, and it may appear to other constituents too, if they get involved in a similar process. The media reports about the old Ontario Municipal Board being a rubber stamp for developers don't exactly help the situation either. As such, I would like this council to keep this perception problem in mind when considering the request for variances for this and other developments in general. We do have bylaws and rules for sizable developments, and they should be applied equitably but firmly as they are when dealing with rules for the rank-and-file citizen. In other words, if the current height limit of 10.5 meters or 3 stories, as it is in this case, if that's the limit, then anything over 3 stories should clearly not be allowed. Even the perception of a two-tiered system can lead to a loss of trust and faith in the system by the average citizen. Now, very quickly, let me now shift focus from the generic point 1 to point 2 that has a specific request for this development. An 8-story condo will have a drastic impact on the neighborhood residents. That is beyond debate. There will be more traffic congestion, noise, and a loss of privacy for immediate neighbors. There will also be financial impact. For example, the Petrolo family's house, located right next door to the proposed development, will be unsellable.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Is there another speaker?
Yeah, I'm Maria Santoro. I'm Frank's wife. I'm just going to continue with our points here. Plus, we'll have to put up with absolute hell when the project is under construction. Dust, noise, heavy trucks and equipment idling, and street blockages. Obviously, we, the neighboring residents, would be happy if this development would not happen. But this is not under our control. It's up to the council and your vote. There is one question I'd like to leave for later follow-up by city staff before I make the second point. What happened to the proposal from the last community meeting that Claver Avenue was to be closed at the east end of the proposed development, forming 2 cul-de-sacs or dead-end streets on each side with trees planted as a possible barrier? This would prevent through traffic, reducing the impact on Claver residents, and give the development better access to their garage. This would resolve the traffic and congestion concerns. If the development would be approved at its proposed height, we, the neighboring residents, have one request. Outside of the street closure just noted, that the developer enclose the terraces or balconies on the east side with glass or windows. This would help alleviate the second of the 2 main concerns, noise. There will always be that one apartment unit where they'll have parties until the early morning hours and often on the balcony or terrace in the summer. We have this experience already with the Treviso development at Lawrence and Dufferin. Although we're 2 blocks away, we can hear such activities as noise carries quite far from the balconies. Someone even complained that she had debris thrown from a balcony barely missed her as she was walking by on the sidewalk. Enclosing the balconies or terraces with glass or windows with mosquito screens for ventilation if needed would alleviate the noise and debris concerns, and partially even the privacy concern for those immediately nearby. In closing, I understand consultations on this project will continue, and I request that the applicants be asked to work with the community to finalize site plan matters. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers on this item? Yes? You'd like to speak in January? Thank you. I believe so. January or February. You'll be informed, please. Okay, thank you, Mr. Petrolo. Yes.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Volpintesta.
my name is Tony Volpintesta. I'm a planning consultant here on behalf of the applicant, and I will try to convince you not to defer this item. First of all, I wanted to let you know that the manner in which the applicant conducted themselves through this process, they started this journey with a commitment. The commitment was to design and propose a building that was compliant with the mid-rise guidelines. That doesn't happen very often. In fact, the former chief planner has used the manner in which the applicant has behaved in this process and the actual application itself and described it as a poster child for how an applicant should behave and how they should conduct themselves and propose something that is, in fact, compliant with the mid-rise guidelines. So this particular application and its trajectory through the municipal approvals process started off on the right foot. I know it might be difficult for members of the community to understand the difference between this application and other applications that started their process through the approvals process in a manner that was compliant with the mid-rise guidelines. The minor tweak was so insignificant that it barely deserves mention in terms of the change that was derived through the process. The report you have before you from the planning department, if it was a report card, my client would score 100% on a report card. You could not find a more glowing report in terms of an assessment of all the key attributes of a proposal, all the key issues raised, and the manner in which they've been addressed. I want to end by commending the planning department for its efforts to answer questions from the community. I know it's a very difficult message to hear that the application is not only reasonable, it's appropriate. I commend Mr. Duramo, Mr. Rozowski for their efforts in terms of their thoroughness and the completeness of this report, and I would ask Community Council not to defer this item. There could very well be an LPAT appeal between this term of council and the next term of council. Staff needs instructions and direction. I believe Community Council has in its possession what it needs to provide staff with in terms of those key directions and instructions to proceed. Those are my submissions. I thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Speakers? Councillor Cole.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I'll start by commending the applicant because as his representative said, the applicant's been excellent and responsive and certainly has been a kind of a model developer, and so I think that's to be commended. My reasons for deferral are less about substance of what's in the report here. You know, I think the community knows something's going to be built here, and it's probably going to look a lot like what's in front of us right now. It's not, and it's not. I mean, it's not going to be 3 stories either. I think we know that it's going to be something like this. My issue is that I received this report last night, and again, planning's been excellent at this, and I know there's this mad rush to get reports in right now, so I'm not putting any blame on planning at all. They've been excellent on this file. I received this at 9:30 last night. I believe the community members probably would be seeing it here printed out if they picked up a copy today, or maybe not at all. And so it's for that reason, and I actually feel bad for the applicant that we're in this situation, but it's for that reason I am suggesting deferral. It's not to punish them because of our break. I wish there was a meeting, you know, in a month's time where the community could see this, and so I am moving the deferral, so at the very least, I can email out a link to the report to members of my community to read.
Okay. So a deferral has been moved. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next item. Francine? 10. Councillor Fillion. No one is here to speak to item 10. You are? 166 Shepherd? Maplehurst. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Doumani, D-O-U-M-A-N-I, initials R-G. I'm the solicitor for the longtime owners of the site. I have with me representatives of the owner and their engineer. Development of the site consists of phases. Phase 1 at the north is a building with 74 affordable rental housing units. 38 former tenants have already exercised their rights of first refusal. Staff seek to impose conditions on the phase which will negatively impact later phases. My client has appealed to LPAT. It's going to be heard in mid-November, then presumably LPAT will take time to consider. Meanwhile, affordable rental housing units are not being built. City has agreed to mediate on the north site only, but this site requires a comprehensive solution, and I'm asking that staff be directed to enter into mediation for the entire site. Those are my submissions, Madam Speaker. Thank you. Those are my submissions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? No? Councillor Fillion, please.
Thank you. And I'm, somewhat sympathetic to the situation here. It is unfortunate that we're not able to move ahead with this project more quickly, but I have spoken to city legal staff, who of course is who we should be taking our direction from, and they are advising just to support the staff recommendations, and that the city is certainly interested in helping resolve this issue. So I think it's a question of the appropriate departments and Mr. Doumani's client sitting down and seeing what they can resolve, but we don't need to direct them to do that. I'm just moving the staff recommendations.
Okay, the staff recommendations have been moved by the local councillor. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 11. Is there anyone here to speak to item 11? Request for direction report 3237 Bayview. Councillor Shiner?
I'm going to send it to council without recommendations.
Okay. Local councillor has moved it go to council without recommendations. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. I'm going to ask that Councillor Pasternak take the chair for the next two items, item 12 and 13, because I'd like to declare an interest in these items as I own property in the immediate area. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, 12 is first. 12.
For you, Dan?
Okay, we're on item 12, directions, report, zoning bylaw amendment, and rental housing demolition applications, 110, 114, 120 Broadview Avenue. Councillor Robinson, what would you like to do?
There's no deputations.
No, we don't have any deputation. Are there any deputations for the item that I just called out? We don't have any on the list. No?
Okay, then I'll be very brief. I'd like to move staff recommendations and just basically echo my earlier comments about the over-intensification of Young Eglinton and the impact on many people in many ways, including lack of infrastructure, transit, really livability, but also the impact it's having on people that rent. And so I won't go into it again, but I would echo those, repeat those comments and move staff recommendations on 3212.
Okay, staff recommendations are before us. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Item 13. Yeah, item 13, the chair has an interest. I don't see any deputations. Request for directions report zoning bylaw amendment application 55 Erskine Avenue. Is anyone here to speak on that item? No one here to speak on that item? The recommendations are before us. Councillor Robinson, what would you like to do?
So again, I will move staff recommendations. Again, I could make the same, echo the same comments, but on this round, I would like to thank staff, actually, planning staff in North York for their ongoing support of the community's concerns and continuing to fight the good fight as they have in the former reports that I've just gone through. And so simply thank staff and move staff recommendations.
All righty. Okay, the item is before us. Councillor Robinson is moving the item. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. As the chair wanted to, that is both items.
Thank you so much. So now we're on item 14? Okay, so we can't deal with item 14 until 11:15, so let's get rid of some of the other items that we have. Okay, let's turn to item 19. Would the clerk please put the motion up on the board? I'll give you a moment to read it over. Have staff seen this? Yes? Are you okay with it? Yes? Okay. I'm moving it on behalf of the local councillor. All in favor? Opposed? He left. Carried. So item 19 is dealt with. Item 9 is dealt with.
Well, he's a big community leader.
Which is?
Yeah, it becomes his area.
Councillor Fillion, are we able to deal with item 27?
It's good to fight the 85-year-old community leader. Why the hell not?
Yes.
I just need to find it for a moment. Give me a moment to read out what it is.
I have a motion, I don't know whether.
Okay. Preliminary report, OPA 15 to 21 Holmes Avenue.
If you're okay with it verbally, we can do it quickly. It's a preliminary report, so I'm just adding the following to the recommendations. One, given the proximity to existing buildings, that the applicant be requested to comply fully with the height limit in the secondary plan. Two, that the applicant be requested to make better use of its entire site in order to potentially reduce heights and/or minimize impacts on adjacent buildings. Three, that when evaluating requests for exemptions to the official plan for density incentives, staff only positively consider those requests which provide demonstrated benefit to the public and which could be shown to be desirable on similar sites within the secondary plan. That the applicant, that the applicant consider revising their servicing for the site so that all turning movements be contained entirely within the development site, not relying on a public laneway. And 5, that prior to a report being brought forward to Community Council, a second community consultation meeting be held in consultation with the local councillor. And these are all okayed by planning staff.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. So, John, that was item 27? 27. Okay, Councillor Burnside, please turn to item 50. Pedestrian crossover, 85 Thornhill Park Drive. All in favor?
Move the staff recommendations, please.
Opposed? Carried. Councillor Burnside, item 24.
Move the staff recommendations with an amendment to expand the area of notice from 120 meter radius. Can we just put it up on the screen? If anyone has any
This
questions?
is 10 to 12 Concord Place preliminary report. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. The next item is 25. Uh, 770 Don Mills Road and 805 Don Mills Road. Councillor Burnside?
Yes, Madam Speaker. Apparently there, and I actually see a gentleman sitting here for the 10 Concord Place. I think there's a speaker on that matter.
On which one?
20, was it 24? The one we just did.
No, there's no registered person.
It's
We've
Carl,
already
right?
dealt with it.
Okay.
There's no person registered. You
Okay.
have to register with the clerk if you want to speak.
Okay, so
25?
25, move the recommendations with an amendment to expand the consultation notice to 1.5 kilometers of the site.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. The additional items? It is? Denzel, did you hold 26? Okay, 26. 1460 Victoria Park Avenue. Okay. Expansion of the notice area, all in favor? Opposed? Carried? Oh, and 30? Item 30, I'm moving approval of the stop sign. Span Valley and Marquette's in front of a school. All in favor? Opposed? Carried? Can we deal with the additional items now? Turn to the additional items. What number do they start at? Councillor Cole, new item 73. Lane naming north of Eglinton Avenue West, west of Dufferin Street as Fairbank Village Lane.
Yes, we would like to rename the unnamed lane to Fairbank Village Lane in Fairbank Village.
So you don't want to rename it, you want to name it?
I want to name it, sorry. It is unnamed.
Any questions?
No.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 74, request for implementation of all-way stop at Glenrush Boulevard and Frontenac. Councillor Carmichael Greb.
Yes, Madam Speaker. 1 second, sorry. There is a new school being built that will be open in September with 600 students coming back into the area. So we need a stop sign at this intersection to keep the children safe, and there isn't enough.
Councillor, which school is that?
Councillor Pasternak? Would you like- Yeshiva,
Yeshiva Yesedia
Yesedia.
Torah. I think your pronunciation was probably
Perfect.
fine.
Yeah.
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. New item 75, request for implementation of always stop at Old Orchard Grove and Gray Road. Councillor Carmichael Greb.
Yes, we have a new park that has just been built and opened this year and is being heavily used by the community, which is great. And we need an additional stop sign on one side of the park to help direct the flow of traffic and protect the residents, children, caregivers that use the park. And a study
Thank
wasn't
you.
able to be done.
Could I hold that item?
Okay, so item 76 is being held.
75.
Sorry, 75 is being held. 76, request for U-turn prohibitions fronting Allenby Junior Public School. Councillor Carmichael Greb.
Yes, this is in front of Allenby. Staff have looked at it. They're okay with it. It's just the streets that front Allenby School.
Madam Speaker, can I just say I'm really happy to see the councillor addressing this because I've witnessed that many times, and it's a very significant problem for that school area.
You're not holding it?
No, I'm not.
All
I'm
in
just
favor?
supporting it.
Opposed? Carried. 77, Councillor Burnside. Stop sign change on Moore Avenue at Southvale Drive.
So it's, the recommendation, what we're trying to do is move a stop sign. It's an offset intersection, so we want to move the stop sign and have staff do the necessary reporting on that to hopefully make that intersection safer for pedestrians.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 78, Councillor Robinson. Speed limit reduction on Wanless Crescent and Rothmere Drive.
So thank you very much, Madam Speaker. This is Wanless, this area is near a school, Toronto French School, and it's actually between Bedford Park School and Wanless and Toronto French School. But the local residents polled and would like to see that reduced.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 79, speed limit reduction on Snowden Avenue. Councillor Robinson.
Okay, again, similar issue. Part of Snowden's already been reduced, and so we thought it was important to be consistent and go all the way down Snowden, again, in a school zone area.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Request to demolish the residential building at 182 Ellerslie. Okay, so let's look at a map first and tell me exactly where it is to see if I need, I can't tell.
It's a few blocks west of Yonge Street. It's
Okay,
about
go ahead.
5 or 6 blocks.
Go ahead.
So it's a piece of property we've acquired for a parkland, so I'll move recommendation 2 that we demolish without any conditions. It's being turned into a park.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Robinson, item 81, request to name the outdoor space at 75 the Donway.
So we'll just hold it down. Councillor Minnan-Wong has
Okay.
something to chat with me about on that, so we'll hold it down.
Item 82, Blythewood Junior Public School road safety measures. Councillor J. Robinson.
Again, Madam Speaker, this has been a frustrating situation just because there's a number of volunteers who have worked for 6 months on these initiatives, and there was a staff report being written. It just didn't make the deadline. So I think if staff would just shake their head in support of these initiatives that have been well vetted through your division, thumbs up, I see. And again, I've mentioned this to some of you, that very important to try to put every measure in place to protect school zones, and this is Blythewood Junior Public School, very popular. In fact, they're adding portables because they have such pressure on this school. So You'll see that staff fully support this. It just simply didn't make it into a staff report because of timing. But a lot of work went into it by school parents as well as neighbors in the Lawrence Park area, and I thank them for their efforts.
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 83 Blythewood Road parking prohibition. Councillor Robinson?
So same story that I've just given, again, would have been part of a staff report, just didn't make the deadline, but is supported by extensive consultation.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Fillion, St. Paschal Bailon Catholic School.
Yes, it's a request for a report so that the students, so we can ensure that whatever issues are outstanding between city staff and the school board staff can get resolved or at least be brought to council's attention so that the students can move into the school in September.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Robinson, 85 speed limit reductions in the Lawrence Park neighborhood.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, request to lower the speed limits. We've worked very closely with staff and the local residents association, the Lawrence Park Ratepayers Association, better known as LPRA. They've done an extensive number of polling of streets, and so we decided to take a critical mass approach. And you'll see all the streets that have identified. Because this neighborhood is sandwiched between Yonge Street, Mount Pleasant, and Bayview, the cut-through traffic, and thanks very much to Waze, the Waze app, it's been a very big problem for this neighborhood, particular streets like St. Leonard's, and so we are taking a very comprehensive approach to Lawrence Park and addressing it in a fulsome, comprehensive manner.
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Cole, York Beltline deficiencies.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a motion to, we've been doing a lot of work on the York Beltline. We're extending it to Marley, and that's fully funded, that's happening. But there's some kind of needling things like road markings and to access the trail, curb cuts, and mostly signage. It's kind of a hidden trail, and so we're trying to make sure that people actually know how to get to it. And so that's the bulk of what this is. And this is all worked on with planning staff, have been great in leading the charge on this. And so that is the item in front of you.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 87, Councillor Cole, speed bumps in Lawrence Heights.
So I've actually amended this and asked for transportation to actually consult with CCHC and report back on this, not just to install.
Okay.
And so sadly, residents in Lawrence Heights want speed bumps, not for Vision Zero targets, because drive-by shooters flee the area with such ease. And so they're at a loss, and so I have agreed to say, well, let's look at it as an option. And there's another thing where they want to look at closing a south end loop of Replan Road where it doesn't actually go anywhere because that's become a real hotspot. So this is reporting back. It's not installing them without that report, but yeah, it's shootings in vehicles has become far too common in the neighborhood.
I'd like to hold that. 88, Councillor Cole, Lawrence Heights revitalization.
This is asking for a report. As most of you know, if you've seen the buildings come to the ground, Councillor Shiner may, I think he's historically declared a conflict on these.
Madam Speaker, I'll declare an interest on this as my family owns property almost in the immediate area.
Yeah.
And
Councillor Cole, could you address in your comments show me, the recommendation, social and economic challenges with innovations and technologies?
So the effort here is we're about to go into the second phase of procurement. So for phase 1 and A and B is either under construction, people are about to move in. The community has realized, and myself and even the market, that this plan came up with was probably a great plan in 2008 or 9 when technology wasn't what it is today. We didn't have automated vehicles, were not on the cusp of being a reality. We don't have smart city solutions like better ways to deal with garbage and waste, buildings that maybe can support people with being fully wired. And so as we go to the phase 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, which is going to come soon, I'm asking for a report to say how can we tweak, review the revitalization of Lawrence Heights to make it a revitalization plan that suits 2020 or 2030, not one that reflects, it's an excellent plan, it's going to be great, but one that reflects 2010 when it first kind of was conceived. And so the report asks to look at ways we can use technology, innovation, to make the next phase of the revitalization one that won't be immediately outdated. The best way I can say it is we don't want to be building the Sky Dome here, and so the minute it's complete, it's beautiful, but it's also obsolete.
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 90, fence removal along the Allen Greenway.
Item 90, I hope that when you introduce these at City Council, Madam Chair, you note how many items we're dealing with
Yes,
compared
thank
to
you
our
for
colleagues.
doing that. I really appreciate it.
This is as sexy as it gets. It's to seek removal of a fence. There's a pathway along the Allen that public can't get to the subway station right now, and we need this fence removed.
All right, thank you. Questions? Speakers? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, 11:15, public hearing. Item 14. There are no speakers listed?
My understanding was there was somebody who was here to speak. I think she's Barbara. Would you like to speak on this item?
No one has registered with the clerk.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Did you come to speak on this, Bayview Avenue? Did you want to speak on it, or?
You can't speak from there, ma'am. So this is the request for interim directions report, zoning amendment application 2654 to 2660 Bayview Avenue. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not exactly certain what the developer has applied for, but to my knowledge, it is 8 townhouses on fronting on Bayview, and then 7 detached homes across the back of the property. Jay, maybe you could help me out with that. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, you can't ask questions.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Thank you very much. You have to register with the clerk.
So my name is Barbara Krieger.
But just register with the clerk, please. Thank you. Councillor Robinson? She's asking you a question. Do you want to address that in your comment? Yeah. Okay, so we'll hold the item down. Item 14. Item 15, please. Request for direction report zoning amendment applications 135 Fenelon Drive. No speakers to this application? Councillor Minnan-Wong? All in favor? Hang on. No?
Which one are we on?
60. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Jay, what do you want to do? Okay, so item 14. There's a motion to expand the notification area.
Madam Speaker, if I have to read this out or if it's self-explanatory, but in consultation with the local Ratepayers Association, who we work with very effectively, they gave us input on the boundaries, And what we wanted to do is expand the boundary notification area to ensure the best civic engagement on this issue. As many of you've heard me speak about in the past, Bayview Avenue is definitely struggling with the level of intensification on a townhouse front. And really it's from the 401 all the way down to Lawrence Avenue. And so staff have basically pulled together this report, and I'm asking to expand the notification area to get feedback from all the local residents.
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We're going to take a 5-minute break. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I have an item we could do, because I know that, no? Okay.
Okay, could councillors take their seats, please? Okay.
Outstanding. 75, yeah, 81. Oh, I don't have 81. And 87.
Thank you. I'm hitting my hammer. No, you're not. Just the female component is. Okay, we're resuming the council resuming the council meeting. Item 87, I held it. I'm moving that it go to council without recommendation. Okay? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We have to find what item 81 is. Oh, do you want to not deal with it now?
I just want to refer to staff.
Okay. Councillor Robinson, are you okay with that? So 81, refer to staff? Okay. Denzel, your motion is? Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. So that's 81 and 87. Councillor Robinson, you're still holding 75? No. I'll try. Here it is. Implementation of an always stop at Old Orchard Grove and Gray Street. Yes. Okay, so moved by the local councillor. All in favor? Opposed? Carried?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
there's an item 3237, always stop control, Angle Mount and Fairholme, that I know Councillor Robinson had questions about. I know the deputant is now here. I don't know if we could do that now.
Okay. Item 37?
Oh, and Madam Chair, I have a petition to hand to clerks. I think it's basically every single resident on the street, almost 50 of them, who are approve the installation of the always stop.
Okay, who is the deputant, please?
Oh, we've got 3.
Have you registered with the clerk?
They're all registered and on the list.
Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome, ma'am.
Say hello.
Good morning, Madam Chair. My name is Sally Marins, and I have lived at the Fairholme and Inglemount for 68 years. I walk many mornings using my walker, and I'm scared to use this intersection. My glassed-in front porch overlooks this intersection, and I see children going to school and coming home from school. And I also see near misses every week. These actual counts do not include the people who avoid this intersection. I'm scared to walk across it with my walker or even in a car. Our actual counts are almost the required level. They are much higher than the ones at Coldstream. We have the same children crossing on the way to the Glen Park Public School, but we also have cars coming from Lawrence Avenue. Trucks are not allowed, but they use Fairholme as a highway, and the stop sign to slow them down before anyone gets hurt. Please vote yes to the always stop before someone gets killed. Please vote yes for the always stop so I can walk freely and safely in my neighborhood. Do it for the children and the elderly and for everyone in between. Let's save lives. Lives, please.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
My name is Kelly Brazil. I live at 88 Fairholme. Significant amount of pedestrian traffic, primarily during rush hour times when children are crossing the intersection to get to and from Glen Park School. The intersection has seen a dramatic increase in volume as people are trying to avoid the main arteries to get into, to access the Allen. And traffic scenes like this have become a daily occurrence. You can see the volume, that's Lawrence to the north, and this is happening every morning during rush hour and every evening during rush hour as well. The problem with this intersection isn't just the amount of traffic that's started to come through this intersection, but driver behavior. The intersection is about 100 feet south of Lawrence Avenue, and there's a tremendous amount of vehicles coming in. Most people approach this stop sign with the impression that it's actually a four-way stop. And often you see vehicles that are slowing down to stop when they shouldn't be stopping, and you see vehicles that are proceeding on the stop sign expecting the opposite, the vehicle traveling in opposite directions to stop. And I believe this type of behavior is what's led to the most recent accidents that we've had. This accident took place on April 26th around 5:30 p.m. Notice the school bus in the background. And also on October 20th in the evening when there's a reduced amount of volume, but yet a confusion, I think, when people approach this stop sign. I know that Mr. Cole's office has sent out a poll. I personally spent 2 days talking to all the residents on the street, and I know that pretty much everybody that I spoke to shares the sentiment that Fairholme has become a thoroughfare for people trying to avoid the busy arteries. We need measures to slow down traffic and keep our children safe. My 3 kids have to cross this intersection on a daily basis to get to their grandparents' home. And with 2 accidents in 6 months, it's only a matter of time before those volumes increase and somebody gets killed at this intersection. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Tamara. I live at 106 Fairholme, so just down the block from these 2 other individuals, just to at this intersection for about the last 6 years. And I have to say that the screech of cars, I know Kelly showed the accidents, the screech of cars from my house is, we're already at the point that my 3 kids don't even run outside to see what happens because they've heard the screech from our family room and they say, oh, there was another near miss at the intersection. So while the 2 accidents that Kelly showed you are not representative of the amount of almost near misses that happen at this intersection with cars that don't even know exactly which way they should be going. And I admit, even as a driver who has lived there for 6 years, I sometimes forget. I'm expecting a 4-way stop and it's not, and people will proceed and they're not quite sure where to go. Just to add further support, I live at this intersection. I actually don't allow my kids to cross at it because I'm always nervous that there's going to be a car flying off Lawrence that doesn't see them. So I require them to walk on the grass to either Lawrence if they want to cross toward Lawrence, or to cross near my house and then walk on the grass at Del Park. So we fully support the stop sign. I echo Kelly, everyone on our street hears the screeches, supports it, and would like a four-way stop. So your consideration for the matter would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, local councillor, please.
As you know, earlier I tried to move adoption of approval of installation of this always stop. I don't think I can say it much better than that these three constituents have expressed, but the near misses are constant. The traffic volumes, I mean, the pictures that Kelly showed, it looks busier on Fairholme and going north on Engelmount sometimes than it does on Lawrence itself. If there's ever a poster child of where a stop sign should be, and considering the hours and hours we debated just recently at council of measures we want to take and the millions of dollars we committed to keep people safe, this is basically a cost-free way to make a neighborhood safer where thousands of kids walk right through this pinch point trying to get to and from school and home. And so I'm moving for approval of the installation of the always stop.
All in favor?
Can I ask questions of staff?
Yes. Staff to the floor, please.
So,
Madam Chair, just on a point of order, should that not have gone before my speech? Okay.
You can speak again if you want.
Okay.
Staff to the floor?
so my question is just why staff didn't support this always stop.
Through you, Madam Chair, staff's recommendations were based on our study, which disclosed that based on the collision experience, the traffic volumes, side street vehicles and pedestrians, the council approved justifications for always stop was not met. We did undertake observations. There did appear to be clear sight lines. There were not issues with pedestrians crossing. There are adjacent always stop or controlled crossings to the north and south. That was the basis of staff's recommendations.
Controlled crossings to the north and south.
Yes.
And
To the north, there's one stop sign. It's
okay.
a one-way stop. There's not an
Can you
intersection.
over around behind? So is there any, my concern is actually is more about safety, and my understanding from a number of your staff, senior staff members, is that sometimes it can be more dangerous, particularly to children, if it's an unwarranted stop sign. And so what's your position on that? Because people, it's unwarranted, so people feel that they're safe, but then there's the issue of rolling stops, et cetera.
Through you, Madam Chair, it's difficult to make, I guess, general statements applying to all unwarranted always stops. So I don't know if I would hazard or speculate as to what the experience would be here, whether it would worsen the safety for pedestrians crossing.
Okay, let me reframe the question. Do you feel by this implementation that what the councillor is moving, do you feel there's any safety issue? That's what I'm getting at. Is there any safety issues? Because I've had your staff repeatedly in some corridors say it's actually could backfire. So we don't want that. And so is there any safety issues related to this request is my question, reframed.
No, I would say that there's not a significant safety hazard associated with always stop installation at this intersection.
At this intersection. Thank you very much.
Okay, we have the local councillor's motion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Burnside, you're ready to deal with item 20, I understand?
I sure am.
Item 20, please.
Hold on to your hats. It's the Laird and Focus Planning Study. I'd like to move the staff recommendations with one amendment. Actually, two amendments, sorry, two amendments. If we put those on the screen, please. Essentially, while we're doing that, it's just the transportation part of the In Focus study. I have some concerns, as does the community. So there are 3 specific areas of the report I want, or I'm requesting that we consult further with the community on. Oh, nice.
Okay, so now that we have this, we'll hold it down and read it over the lunch hour.
Can we just vote?
I'm sorry?
Okay.
Thank you. Item 16, please. There are a number of people who would like to speak to this item. Request for direction report, zoning bylaw amendment, and draft plan of subdivisions, 15 Mallow Road in Ward 34. The first speaker is Paul Smith, followed by Dorothy Kovach. First of all, is Eileen Costello here? I wonder if she should go first. Usually we have a policy that the proponent goes first. And she's representing Ayrton Burles? All right, thank you. So you're going to share while I go to the bathroom? Okay. Okay, so 16 is held down. 17, intent to designate 35 Dinnick. I have one person so far, Angus Skeen, architect representing the owner. Are you here? Yes. All right. James, you'll take the chair for this item? Thank you.
Thank you very much. You have 5 minutes.
Sure. I'm just wondering if I can come back to the overhead somehow? Oh, great, okay. I realize it's a busy schedule. I will contain myself to the 5 minutes, and I'll try to keep it light but authoritative, if I can put it that way. Give me half a second to do the zooming. Okay. I'm Angus Skeen. I'm the architect, and I'm here representing the owner of 35 Dinnick. The key thing here is an intent to designate has been expressed by the city. The owner opposes that intent. I'm going to go through telling you what the situation is now, and it's changed very much. Like you, I've been quite busy rushing to get this stuff ready. I sent an email to all of you last night. I'll parse that quickly. Then I'll actually leave the notes and speak in a more formal way to actually address the arguments of the staff report from Heritage and the reason you should actually trust my opinion. So the quick email I sent you last night, I'm just going to do the point forms to make it clear. The owner does not want his home to be historically designated. The building and planning applications that caused all this have been canceled. The owner will appeal the intent to designate to the Conservation Review Board. The city's case for designation is weak. Please see my earlier submission, which was at the Heritage Committee. No one has ever called this house historically significant before, not the city, not the guidebooks, no one. There is a Heritage District study of the whole area coming that is a far better place to deal with all of this. The owner is happy to work with Heritage and will consider any agreement formalizing his intent in the future with the city. I already have a design that leaves the house pretty much as it is, and the owner likes it. Paul Macca at Heritage staff said they can likely support it. So please save the city time, trouble, and money. Do not vote to designate this house against the owner's wishes. Now, who am I? My kids don't know it, but long before they were born, back in the 90s, I received a bunch of Heritage Toronto awards. I worked with them to develop tours. I was a volunteer under the administration of people who, Catherine Anderson's still around, Eleanor Dark's gone. My most recent one, I think, was in 2013, actually for articles I'd written for the Toronto Star as an architect and historian, one of about 20 articles for Douglas Cudmore there. Doug found me because back in the 90s, I don't know if any of you remember, there was a show called Structures on the community TV station that I invented and that was very popular, and it examined the history and architecture of Toronto, its architects, its neighborhoods. I got to that simply through being an architect and having an interest in history. I created the historic building inventory for the city of Cambridge in 1993. I completed a very detailed study for the city of Kitchener in 1992 on an industrial complex. And of course, I'm an architect. My work has always been with older houses in the city, so that means from 1987 to now. I have created reports like the staff report you have, I think at least 60 of them for Cambridge, and it's why I could look at it quite critically. I'll be quick. They have to rely on the Heritage Act, and it basically breaks down into 3 qualifications. The thing's either significant for its design, or it's significant for its associative historical value, or it's significant as a part of its context. Now, what you have here at, I have a picture somewhere. You have pictures in your files, but this would be the front of Dinnick. What you have here is this is long after the initial real estate speculation of Lawrence Park had failed and collapsed. The banks foreclosed and the lots were sold in the early 1920s. Speculative builders moved in. That's who purchased this property. Then, like now, the speculative builder was actually a piano manufacturer. He put the land in his wife's name and he got his son to draw up the drawings. Back then, anyone could call themselves an architect. It wasn't until 1931 that the designation of architect became legal in the province. So when Heritage tells you that there's an architect involved, it's as much an architect as you, me, or anyone else. If you actually look at the drawings in Heritage's report of the original building, they are very, very poor drafted drawings. Almost no information, and if I was trying to hire a kid based on those drawings, I'd probably not hire them. You can tell by the letter quality, the line weight, the person is just learning. More than likely, since he was 20 years old at the time, it's a design cribbed out of one of the many architectural plan books that then, like now, you can Google it, house plans, you'll get about 100,000 hits. So for design, I don't think the house qualifies. It's a knockoff of what's called arts and crafts around here, which are essentially knockoffs of very expensive buildings built in the home counties of England around 1900 by famous architects.
Excuse me, you're a little over 5 minutes. If you could wrap up.
Oh, for sure.
Thank you.
Its associative value, the owner of Knox lived there 15 years. He's not even the longest resident. He was kicked out after he died because he couldn't pay the mortgage. So I'm not sure that Knox is the appropriate name for the building either as associative value. Hoare is not an important architect. There's no question of that. The context, there might be an argument to keep it, but to be honest, the contextual stuff, which is to do with height, massing, and landscaping, is all handled through a lot of other bylaws. In closing, in your little package I gave you, I think there's a solution sitting in front of everybody. And it's a design that basically keeps the house as it is. The owner's happy with it. Heritage seems happy with it. But nonetheless, they're persisting with the idea to designate, which I understand backstops their ability to control what happens. I know on the street, I called 2 lawyers. One lawyer said, don't worry, they'll never designate a house against the owner's wishes. The other said, you don't stand a chance. When I asked builders, this is a tactic that's been used lately.
I know these are fun stories, but could we wrap up?
Yeah, that's basically, I think that's it. I would essentially say I think there's a solution. The owner's against the designation and he's going to appeal. And we're happy to work with Heritage.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else to depute on this matter?
No, there was some letter submissions.
There are letter submissions. Councillor Robinson?
Yeah, just a quick question for the speaker. Is the owner of the home here today?
He runs a clinic, like an optometry clinic, and he has these sessions, but I haven't seen him.
Okay, and does he currently live in the area?
He lives in the house. Yeah, he moved there about
Oh, he lives in the house currently, okay. I was just wondering if they were here.
Okay.
Okay.
So is this questions
I guess
for
I
the
would have
deputy?
questions of staff then.
Okay, let's go to questions. Let's go to questions of
Blindsided-
staff.
This has kind of blindsided me a bit, this one. And I
Okay, so
love my
Councillor Robinson,
colleagues'
questions of
input.
staff. Staff on the floor?
So can you just speak to we've just heard that it may be possibly not a heritage house and some questions about the architect, et cetera. Could you just give council, I guess, a summary, a quick Cole's notes, not Josh Cole, but the real Cole's notes on why you think this is a heritage home?
Yes, Councillor, through the chair. Heritage Preservation Services has done an extensive review and looking at the area previous to this individual report as part of our determination and Council's authorization for Lawrence Park West being a potential heritage conservation district. As such, we scanned a variety of properties and had engagement with the community. What is interesting about this building in particular is that it represents a phase of Lawrence Park at the interwar from the 1920s. And I think one of the things that's most important for it is that it continues to adopt the principles that were originally laid out for the neighborhood. And it's one of those contributing properties that we looked at. We did an individual research of this property. The architect himself, while not registered because it predated, when he designed the house, because it predated the creation of the Ontario Association of Architects, he actually went on later to have a very important career in Toronto in designing the buildings affiliated with Regent Park, and as well as some of the residential apartment buildings in North York. We look to this building as really representative and important parts of buildings, and we've reviewed in the report yourself what is the provincial criteria that makes it worthy for inclusion on the city's Heritage Register and Part 4 designation.
Thank you. I guess my other question would be if this was designated today by council. So I'm assuming this has gone through the process and it went to, what was the former body it went to prior to coming here?
You have before you, through the chair, you have the recommendations from the Toronto Preservation Board, and they made the recommendations looking at the report presented by staff and had the benefit of Mr. Skeen's critique and making its recommendations to adopt the city's staff report.
And so the Toronto Preservation Board, did they unanimously support this? Or majority obviously did, but any feedback from that meeting that can provide insights for this council?
No, there was no debate. There wasn't a recorded vote, so I can't say if it was unanimous or not.
But there was no debate, it was just approved?
That is correct.
And if this was designated today, can they still, the architect and the owner still make changes to the building?
Yes, under the Ontario Heritage Act, an owner can seek permission to alter the building and would come forward again to Toronto Preservation Board and to City Council. My colleague, Acting Program Manager Paul Macca, had a preliminary discussion with the project architect and encouraged him to submit formal drawings. It was just a preliminary sketch. We would be happy to continue to have that dialogue.
So you'd be happy to continue to have that dialogue, but you would also like to see this council support your recommendations and the recommendations of Toronto Preservation Board?
Yes, indeed.
So you still, because we heard maybe otherwise in the presentation, but you're saying you would like us to adopt this report today, but also willing to work with the applicant?
That is correct.
Okay. Okay, I guess those are all my questions.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Any other questions for staff? Councillor Carmichael Grab?
Sorry, just to clarify, so how did this house, the designate, or the heritage aspect of it, come through the Committee of Adjustments process, or did someone apply to have the house listed and then designated?
As stated in the report, it was actually triggered through a Committee of Adjustment. They asked Heritage Preservation Services to do an evaluation and then come back with that recommendation. It's stemming from a meeting in February.
And what sort of consultation was done with the owner?
We spoke with the owner, not with the owner, with the owner's architects about 2 weeks ago. They reached out to us. We didn't have any initial, from the decision from Committee of Adjustment, from the owner coming to us since February.
But you did not reach out to the owner to say that this house should be designated heritage back in February?
No, the decision hadn't been made at that point. It was direction to actually do the research and evaluation.
And you didn't talk to the owner back then, when you were going to do the research?
It was a noted decision that was happening. No, we only conducted this research in our last cycle, in the last month.
Okay.
Do we have a motion on the floor? Okay, go ahead.
So I'm a little bit
I'm a little, I hope you can hear me. I'm a little confused. So you had this committee of adjustment. The genesis was a committee of adjustment situation, right? Hearing?
That is correct, Counselor.
So the owner would necessarily know? Wouldn't they know at that point?
I would assume that they would know, but I can't speak on their behalf.
Well, at a committee of adjustment hearing, isn't the application done by the owner? Or would there be somebody, or their representative?
Yes, I would believe that the information is, the decision is actually shared with the property owner.
Right, okay, so they would have to know. Okay, that was my first question. And then the, Mr. Skeen, I think, Mr. Skeen, the architect, he said that he had a proposal, and is there anything you can tell us about that proposal in lieu of the designation?
I didn't attend that meeting, but I have notes from my colleague Paul Macca saying that there were some preliminary suggestions of how they might modify it. But he said that Paul Macca has written to me confirming that there would still be changes that would be required before we could even consider it, and specifically the alterations to the historic roof structure.
Okay, thanks.
Any other? Yes, Councillor Shiner.
Sorry, my apologies if I am repetitive, but I'm trying to understand how we got here. The property owner wanted to tear down the house and rebuild a new house, is that right?
It's a substantial addition to the side of the house and an addition or alterations to the front of the house, requiring a minor variance.
And that was at the Committee of Adjustment who's going there?
Yes, it came before the Committee of Adjustment in February of this year.
And the committee permitted it or refused it?
They've deferred decision pending an evaluation of its cultural heritage value by Heritage Preservation Services.
Was this home listed?
No, that was the initiative for us. The area is subject to a Heritage Conservation District study, so Heritage Preservation Services monitors any minor variances, applications, or demolitions in the area.
So the answer is no, it wasn't listed.
That's correct.
And the plans that they put forward, in your opinion, would they be able to go forward with something similar to that if the home was designated?
We certainly would be looking at to help them to accommodate their family needs and modernizing the house that they need. There's no interior to the extent of what's being proposed for an addition. This is new information as of last night that just came to our attention of what they're proposing next. I haven't seen anything submitted for drawings.
So they might be able to go forward with an expansion of the home and their new additions and still maintain a lot of the character of this house?
That is correct.
If we deferred a decision on this and sent it to council without recommendation, would you be able to work with the local councillor and the applicant and yourself to see if you could work that out before council?
I would suggest that there is an opportunity that we still have within the next 2 weeks to look at what they propose, so the item might still be able to proceed to council, but it's your decision.
No, what I'm asking you is, I'm sorry, I haven't seen the plans, I haven't been involved, I don't know anything about it, except the homeowner wanted to do some major renovations to their home and they're being stopped because they've told, although the house wasn't listed, so they had no idea that there was an interest in it. Now we're saying to designate it when they won't be able to do the alterations. So my question was, after you've seen the plans last night, do you think that between yourself, the homeowner, and the local councillor, you could work something out before council that would permit substantial renovations and still maintain the heritage character of the home?
I would suggest that we could meet with them, and but I can't. It all just happened as of last night that they've now notified us that they've withdrawn their application to the Committee of Adjustment, which would imply to me that they are minor in their changes, their suggestions of their renovations. So it's within scope that we could meet with them before council.
Thank you.
Do you have a question? Any other questions? Speakers? Councillor Shiner?
Madam Chair and to the local councillor, if I was in the position, I'm going to move a motion to send this to council without a recommendation and to request that the local councillor, Heritage, City Planning, and the property owner meet between now and then to see if there is to meet to discuss the alterations to the property. So the motion will be quite simple, just to meet and discuss them. The intent of it is that, and I look at it as if any of us had purchased this home and it wasn't even listed. So we had no idea that there was an interest in the house until we followed the rules and made an application at the Committee of Adjustment where we needed some variances, and all of a sudden we're told there might be an interest in the house. Because otherwise, I could have brought an application for a building permit if I didn't need variances to the building department and have had that. And I wouldn't be here today being told that I might have to save the house as it is, and I don't think that's fair. I think that there might be a way to find a compromise in the middle of this with some plans that would allow the owner to make some reasonable modifications to the home that they may have and still save the heritage character, which I believe is what this community likes to see. Not new monster homes, but homes that fit more into the community, and I think that might be achievable. And I did mention it to the local councilor if she would object to my doing that, and she didn't tell me that she would. So that's why I moved the motion.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to say. I think I will support the deferral. I have to say that I think council, though, would be unlikely to not support a heritage designation of a house. So maybe this body would have more influence or direction, but it's a very challenging situation because the applicant did not know that this was coming down the pipe. So it does feel a bit uncomfortable. At the same time, we've just heard from staff that the Toronto Preservation Board would like to see it designated, and I would think that that body would know a lot about, much more than I'll ever know about heritage. And we do want to preserve these nuggets of heritage throughout our city, and they're citing a very impressive architect who's done work in Regent Park, etc. So I will support Councillor Shiner's motion as a local councillor and look forward to further conversations. Maybe there's a misunderstanding. I think a lot of people think heritage is just a rubber stamp and there's not some flexibility, but my understanding from heritage preservation staff that there is lots of flexibility when addressing these things. So I think more time might be beneficial in this instance and with this application.
Any other speakers? All right, you have the motion by Councillor Shiner. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Burnside, re-layered. Can we put that back on the table now with questions of staff? Item 20?
Item 20, yeah.
Okay, so if I have a copy of the amendment before me, I'll be able to ask questions of staff. Staff to the floor, please. So I'd like an opinion of staff about the amendment. In particular, the deletions of the signalized intersection at Don Avon Drive, Eglinton East, and Vanderhoof at Laird.
Through you, Madam Chair, we have no objection to the motion. What the motion does is not endorse those intersection improvements at this time until we've had further consultation with the community and report back with the final report in Q2 2019.
Are there any concerns that staff have about the amendment?
No.
Okay. Are there any questions? Any other questions? Councillor Burnside, you have the amendments before us, and then you're also moving the staff recommendations. So on the amendments for item 20, all in favor, opposed, carried, and the report of staff as amended, all in favor, opposed, carried. Thank you. Yes. Yes. Item 16, please. 11:30 public hearing.
I don't know if there are any deputants on this item.
Paul Smith.
My intention was to send it to council with that recommendation.
Is there a Paul Smith here? Sir? You heard the local councillor say his intention was to send it to council without recommendation.
I didn't hear that, no.
He just said it.
Oh, okay. I just like to make one comment on one of the,
Okay, go
is
ahead.
it okay for me to comment? I'm not really certain that I understand what that meant then. Maybe you should clarify what that means if you're sending it.
It just means not making a decision today. Are there any other speakers other than Mr. Smith? You've registered? Go ahead.
I'm sorry, before Mr. Smith speaks, is it not custom in this chamber to hear from the applicant first, if the applicant wishes to speak?
Does the applicant wish to speak? Okay, we'll hear from the applicant first. Thank you.
Sure.
Good afternoon, members of Community Council. My name is Eileen Costello. I'm a solicitor for Mattamy Homes, which is the applicant in this matter. I understand after discussions with the councillor that he was going to move this matter without directions to council, and we support the councillor's motion. We understood there was something he wanted to speak with my client about, and we're happy to do that. And I just reserve the opportunity to respond if there's anything I need to when I hear from the residents.
No.
Then,
We don't do that, sir.
then that's fine.
All right,
We're
thank
happy
you.
to have it move, and we're happy with the
Okay,
councillor's
Mr. Smith?
recommendation.
Go ahead, please.
Just because I'm not an expert on this process, so what does that really mean right now? Are you just deferring this? Is that what? Well, I'm just asking questions about what just happened.
The solicitor said that she is okay with the councillor's motion not to make a recommendation today.
Okay. So,
Oh, dear.
I just want to help you.
yes, yeah, thanks,
You're allowed
Denzel.
to speak for 5 minutes. You're not allowed to ask questions, and after that, we get to ask questions of you, and then we'll take it from there, and I'm happy to talk to you after.
Yeah. Okay, well then I'll speak, I guess. I just don't know that I understand the process that well, so I just, because if I understand, Denzel, what you're saying here is that this is not going to be discussed any further today, if that's what you're saying. I'm sorry to...
Sir, we are not saying that. Please say your piece.
Okay.
Okay.
I'd like to draw attention to the fact that in this development, there's a plan to have 47 homes. Of this, 33 are townhomes and 14 are detached homes. Of the 33 townhomes, there's dedicated parking for one car. And the majority of these buildings are 3+1 family homes. And I think it's pretty common in today's society to have most families have 2 cars. The design plan allows for 10 to 12 street parking spots, and this would mean that of the 33 townhomes who probably have 2 cars, there's going to be an overflow of 33 cars looking to park in the 10 to 12 dedicated street parking spots in the subdivision plan. So with that, we also know that there will be visitors coming to visit people that live there, which could easily mean another additional 8 people wanting to come visit family or friends at any one point in time. So this leaves a gap of about 50 parking spots that the subdivision plan has not accommodated for, which means that the cars are going to have to park somewhere. So they're going to either park on Donway East, Broadleaf Road, or Mallow Road. And none of these streets can actually accommodate this type of volume of parking. So what we're proposing and are requesting council to look at is that owing to such things as the winding streets, pedestrian safety, that's school bus stops that bound this whole area. This has been raised at community consultation, which has been documented in the report that was submitted. We'd like to have the plan modified so that there's sufficient parking for an additional 24 cars in the subdivision. This would assume that approximately 50% of the townhomes have 2 cars, not all of them, and it would allow for about 8 guest parking spots when people come to visit people that live there. I think this would be a good move from a safety decision for the neighborhood. And the other fact is that the Greenbelt path connects into Mallow Road where overflow parking might occur, and also connects into Broadleaf at the same location on the south side of the subdivision plan. The additional 24 spots will be a good recommendation to make because it will ultimately be in the best interests of all parties, both the people that currently live in the neighborhood plus the new people that will be moving into the neighborhood to create a stable, safe environment. Thank you.
Are there questions? You may be seated. Are there any other speakers? Okay. You have 5 minutes.
My name is Vanessa Quinn. I'm the Area 5 representative of the Don Mills Residents Association, which encompasses this area. What Paul has discussed was actually discussed at a area meeting, and I'd just like to add to his parking comments that the church on the corner, which abuts this development, had an understanding with the old Mallow School for parking. And when that school was demolished and the parking lot removed, the church lost more than 50% of its parking spots. So for any church function, they are forced to park on the Donway and Mallow, which is also going to be exacerbated by the new residents who don't have sufficient parking. The other thing I'd like to mention is in part of the zoning amendment, the applicant has agreed to build sort of a small park to abut the Toronto City Park. And that's page 15 of the document, and then there are more pages on how that's supposed to happen. The community discussed this, and we are pleased that Mattamy is making a commitment to parkland to replace some of our park area, which the community lost as a result of the demolition of Mallow Road School. Parkland is an essential part of our community. We are one of the 12 green neighborhoods. We have our own document, the Central Don Mills Secondary Plan. And as a result of that, we feel, that is the community, feels that this new creation of a small park by Mattamy would better serve the community if it were owned and maintained by the city, so that the public right-of-way, which is the footpath from Broadleaf into this to ease into the park, would then be totally public space, and that there would be a more consistent treatment and maintenance of this new parkette, which abuts the city park, if it were the responsibility of the city and not divided between 2 different bodies, that is the newly designated condominium corporation and the city. So in essence, we would like to see the city maintain and own this additional little park that abuts the Toronto City Park, which is yet to be developed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Councillor Minnan-Wong?
Yeah, just I have a question of staff just to clarify one point. So with regard to the dedication of parkland and the land that we own, the city is going to own and maintain all of that property, correct?
That's correct. The proposed parcel to be dedicated by Mattamy would be conveyed to the city as a piece of public parkland.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Shiner.
Sorry, staff, is there a section 37 negotiated on this site?
Yes, there is. So it's 450,000 to be dedicated towards improvements to the future city-owned park immediately abutting this property, the former site of Mallow Road Public School.
Is there a budget from Parks that you know that it would actually take to do the full improvements?
The full improvements Parks has estimated would cost about 800,000.
So why, if they're building a whole new subdivision, Are they not paying for the park's improvements through a Section 37?
Through the negotiation, we attempted to get them up to the $800,000 level, but they were unwilling to go there.
So what options do we have? Because replacing a playground in a park these days is $200,000. This wouldn't provide much. Is it common for us, when you're doing a subdivision of over 30 homes, to not at least get a reasonable amenity space in the local park?
We certainly thought that was a reasonable request, but again, Mattamy did not agree.
Thank you. I don't have any questions of staff.
Councillor Fillion and then Councillor Burnside.
Yes, Councillor Shiner has perked my interest. What is the density increase on this site in square feet from what it currently is to what would be approved if this was adopted?
So technically, the site does not currently have residential permissions. So from a Section 37 perspective, technically they're going from 0 residential GFA to what they're now proposing at 0.9 times FSI.
Right. So how many square feet is that?
So it's about 11,278 square meters.
Sorry, and I kind of work in feet, so can you tell me what that...
Approximately 40,000 square feet.
And the total size of the development is what? It's more than 10,000 square meters, obviously. It's 11.
Correct, yeah,
So,
11,000.
Yeah. So, so if you take 400,000, so do I have this right? They're offering, as a percentage, do we know what the value of 40,000 square feet is?
Through you, Madam Chair, this matter is under appeal at the board, and ordinarily we don't share financial information, especially on a matter that's going before the board. If your question is with regards to whether the Section 37 amount is on the high end or on the low end, the answer would be it's on the low end.
Yeah, I would say on the extreme low end, yes. Thank you.
Councillor Burnside?
I think hearing the answer, my questions are probably not going to be answered. But so you can't say what the uptick on that is for the Section 37?
I think you can assume that the uptick is the entire GFA, the entire residential GFA
yeah.
for the property.
Right. No, sorry, I assume that. But what's the what in any situation where there's an uptick, what does the city normally request? Is it somewhere in the 10 to 15% of that?
Through you, Madam Chair, every Section 37 negotiation is based on a negotiation based on the particulars of that project. In this instance, as my colleague said earlier, this project is just over 10,000 meters squared. Our thresholds for Section 37 in the fish plan is 10,000. So, for example, if they had reduced this project by 3 units, they'd fall under the threshold and there would be no Section 37.
Okay, right. But you can't say what that percentage is then, what you're asking for?
No.
Okay. And were there 30 townhomes? Was that what it was?
47, sorry. There's 47 homes, 33 towns, 14
Okay, 47 homes,
detached
that's all I need to know. So 47 homes, and if you took 20,000 per home, that would be 940,000. Is that right?
Yeah, we haven't done the math in that particular way, but that does make sense.
And these are townhomes. What's the average size of the townhome?
They're all 3-bedroom units, so they're all...
We can assume they're over 1,000 square feet?
Correct.
And we can assume they're probably in the 800 to $1 million range. Wow. 20,000 per home on it. Wow. Okay, thanks.
There are no other questioners. Councillor Min Wong has requested to speak. Okay.
Thank you. My motion is to send this on to council with a recommendation. I want to thank the councillors for asking their questions. They're kind of along the same vein that I've been spending a lot of time talking with the applicant and the applicant solicitor about. In my view, is that they're not giving enough in terms of community benefit. This is a benefit I want councillors to appreciate. When you give a Section 37 benefit, sometimes that benefit, if it's a park, it's blocks away. This is right next to their property. These are benefits that will directly benefit the residents who live there. I think, and as the planner, as the planner said, this is on the very low end of the Section 37 spectrum, and I think someone asked how much per unit, and that's also a very, very good question as well. So my hope today is to continue my discussions with the applicant and see if we can make improvements to this application before we get to council.
Councillor Shiner?
Sorry, I appreciate that. I know my colleague has his frustrations with this. I was just in the back. What's the motion that's here?
That it go to
Council without
council without
recommendation.
recommendation.
So I would support that. I would strongly suggest that the applicant find a way to assist with building a complete community, which includes public parks and open space, that the amount of $400,000, although it might be considered by them to be a generous amount in the cost that it takes to build a park, it's not. And that it is actually more efficient and more cost beneficial if they would build the park as we would like it to be and deliver it to the city, because they can do it for less. And I would hope between now and council they'll work with my colleague to find something that's amenable to have a decent park space over there, and for the few extra dollars that it would be in the size of this development, I think it's the appropriate thing to do. So I hope that my colleague's able to find some resolution to this. And I'll support the motion to send it without a recommendation.
Councillor Burnside?
Yeah, just quickly, I'll be supporting as well. I mean, the calculation I did, in my opinion, the amount being offered by the developer, who, by the way, is not a new kid on the block, it's quite an established developer, it's actually embarrassing. And the developer has to be well aware of the needs of the city and, of the community, the small community they're building. And just by way of comparison, I had a development in Leaside, and I know the planning department referred to anything under 10,000 square meters not being required for a Section 37 agreement. In the spirit of community building, I had a development that was well under 10,000 square meters, and that particular developer, Mr. Baghai, actually voluntarily entered into a Section 37 agreement of $350,000. And I think sometimes we need to look at the best practices and stay away from some of the worst practices. Thank you.
Just very briefly, yes. Mattamy Homes is very good at doing its mathematics and looking at its square footage and making sure that they're under that threshold that requires them to do a Section 37. We learned that the hard way on Patricia. And we were even led to believe we would get a voluntary Section 37 contribution, which they later said no to. So we understand this file very well. Speaking of Patricia, we are reopening it for a technical amendment in a few minutes. But anyway, I thought I'd add to the conversation now that we're on a roll.
Just to add, having a park virtually on site next door, certainly adds value to the units from a sale perspective. So that's one consideration. another, like Councillor Burnside, I have had applicants who, even though they were less than 10,000 square meters, have contributed generously to Section 37. And the third point is when we get an embarrassingly low Section 37 like this one, if we accept it, then gets used by other applicants to go, well, they only paid this, why should we pay more? So it doesn't just cost us the money from this site, it costs us, all of us, on future developments in our wards, people pointing to the paltry amount
My
that they
apologies,
gave over
Councillor
here.
Fillion. My apologies. The clerks has just told me that we need a motion to extend because we've reached 12:30.
I'll move that and I'll end my,
So I'm sorry, your motion to extend this item? To
Yes.
this item?
yes.
Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Go ahead.
No, I'm done, thank you.
Oh. Okay. Okay. So all in favor, any more speakers? No. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. So since Councillor Fillion's motion included only that item, I can't move my motion now. I know. Okay, we're due back at 1:30, please.